Hello everyone, Milan here, and welcome back to my channel. Today I am making a video about the Staff's Stories quadrilogy in between All Stars and the Tom and Jake Show. And I'm just gonna say overall, I have a lot to criticize about it. But yeah, I'm just gonna go at them one at a time from the one that I hate the most to the one which I think was actually a pretty good episode. So I'm going to start off with the worst one, as I said, because I like repeating myself for some reason. Anyways, in last place, we have Blood Bond. I was expecting a lot out of this episode. We were getting to see the past of Crystal, who was the host of two of the seasons. And we were also getting to meet her dad. And oh, I was disappointed. First of all, it is the longest episode of the series. It was given the most time to do interesting and failed to do that. Second of all, it had a very good premise. It was showing audition tapes from Crystal's past, and she was going to meet her dad. See her dad for the first time in several years. But it just turned out wrong. First of all, it included other members of the staff, which I don't really think that this series should be doing, like it didn't do for any of the other episodes, because they're centered around one character or two characters for the latter. And that often included some new characters as well. But we don't want it to have multiple characters, some of which have their own episodes. Also, Oliver. Why? He was inside of this episode, which meant they could clearly get his voice actor to make an episode for him if they wanted to. But they just didn't. They decided to only have the series have 4 episodes when there are 8 members who were inside of the staff. Also, another criticism, where is Emily? I mean, I get that she was only in the staff for part of All Stars, but we really didn't get to learn much about her. It would have been very good if we got to see her have her own episode. And Oliver, too, because he was the first boot inside of season 2, and we never really got to learn much about him. And for the vast majority of his time inside of the show, he was a part of the staff. But he just has some cameos inside of this, and that's it. Speaking of cameos, so apparently Marcus and Nina are here, but why aren't Trevor and Derek? I mean, I get that they're like in their apartment canonically, but I just find it weird how they didn't go on the vacation with the rest of them, because they definitely would have enough money to do it. Anyways, let's move on to other stuff. Crystal, the one this episode is about. I have problems. First of all, there's way too much of the episode is in the present instead of flashbacks in the past. And this is supposed to be stories, not us just catching up on what they're doing. And in the time that we see Crystal when she was younger, only one of her scenes was special. The one where she found out that her dad wasn't going to come home for a while and she got upset. The rest of them are just auditions. And yes, baby Crystal is very cute, but teen Crystal has a pretty bad design and has the same voice actor as the adult version. And we didn't really get to see enough. We just saw Crystal bowl against her dad, some of her audition tapes, her getting upset that she didn't get to see her dad, her getting mad that she is being forced to see her dad, and her about to go on a vacation with other members of the staff, which does nothing for the story. And let's move on to Christoph McLean. I'm going to admit It is very clever that they decided to have his name be Kristoff instead of Chris. But besides that, I have no compliments to him. His voice is nothing like Chris, which I get probably because of copyright and stuff. But I just find it disappointing that they included Crystal's dad, and it's just nothing like we expected. Also, another thing, his show is called Race to the Place, and he asked for Crystal to co host with him, which makes it just seem like they're setting up for there to be a redonkulous race knockoff. Also, they did nothing about his last name, and last time I checked, McLean isn't the most common last name in the world, so it's possible that that isn't even actually her dad, and he has no character. And apparently, even though he has been running his show since Crystal was a child, he's been running it for literal years. He is some. And it's a race show, so it would likely be fast paced. He's only in season 30, and yeah. Also, I find it kind of weird how Crystal wasn't excited about getting to see her dad because it had been so long. And another thing, why did he just ghost Crystal? Like, she wanted to be part of your show so bad while she was growing up, and you just didn't tell her anything. You could have said that she has to get through school first so she can go to work on your show with you. That would make sense. But they just didn't. Also, apparently, uh, his employer got Crystal this venture camp, but season one came before that, and Derek and Trevor likely still owned it, so it makes it look like he's just a thief and he just stole their show to let his daughter have it instead of just, letting her do what she wanted the whole time to be part of his show. And then she just moved on, and then she was tempted to join it for some reason, but it feels like she is still going to in the future. And it just makes me upset how bad they failed on episode 2. Now that I'm done ranting with that, it's time to get to the second worst episode, which isn't near as bad, but I think I still have some criticism to do with episode 3. The episode about Marcus literally has nothing to do with him in the present. It's all about just what happened to let him get Nina as a doll, which made the show even less realistic because here's what they decided to do. Even though the show had been realistic up to this point, other besides that the fact that Nina is Nina and the fact that she just possessed Aiden near the end of season 3. But the promised doll made it even worse. So apparently there was just this realistic girl doll which had Nina's voice inside of the ads, and she just there was just a bunch of good dolls for like little girls and stuff, and like it turns out that Marcus had a daughter whose name was Nina, and then he just went off to go to the military, and then their house was set on fire, and then his wife and daughter died. We get one scene of his daughter, and she just dies, and we didn't even get to see his wife. And then he just comes back, and he's just on the show with these two lesbian girls, who I honestly kind of like, and this goofy camera guy. Those three characters are nice. I like them. I hope they're going to be in a future season. But it but I feel like they're not going to be, because they're probably going to be like adults at this point, because and like most of the characters who have been on Disventure camp are teenagers last time I checked. And like sure there have been some exceptions like Fiore, Connor and Miriam, and Greta's probably a full-grown adult and she was still dating Yule for some reason, which is very creepy. It, but the thing is, Marcus was like around, let's say, 35, and they were teenagers, and now Marcus is old, so they're probably adults, and I don't feel like they would be in a season. Anyways, let's just move on. We didn't really get much character development with them. Like, it was nice seeing the fact that these two girls made the show together, and they were just keeping it together, and they loved each other. But the camera guy, he just has some moments at times where he's funny, but he gets no development. And yeah, so they go to they're trying to figure out about these dolls. So they go to a factory with them and then get chased down by one who is trying to murder them after they let it go because it has been chained up, a clear sign that they should not let it go. And then Marcus just almost dies. Then the doll we now know as Nina comes out, kills that possessed doll, and then it shows that they're really nice. And the three people inside of that are doing the show thing are about to go and make this an episode, and then Marcus for some reason doesn't want them to. Like, I get that they're trying to not have the nice doll get in trouble, but they literally just did something. For all they know, it was just a trap and they wanted to murder it themselves. And then and then a police officer interviews him, and he just says that he doesn't do it, didn't do it, which is weird. Also, least viewed episode in the series. That's sad. And it also second longest. Are you seeing a trend? They it felt like they needed to put more inside of this episode, but it also feels like they put too much inside of it, and we didn't really get to learn much about Marcus from it besides the fact that he used to have a daughter, which would make so much sense for them to let us know earlier in the series, but they didn't for some reason. And I am just disappointed at what they ended up doing with this. The Promised Doll, I uh, after episode 2, I thought the series had gone downhill, and this one was also bad. But at the same time, I was expecting so much more. But they just made the show even less realistic and did really nothing. And the fact that they introduced 3 characters specifically for this one episode also means that they're not going to get enough. Because, in episode 4, the only main character they introduce is Moose, and he gets some decent development because they decided to only bring one new character into this. But with 3, it just doesn't work. I have so much more I could say about it, but I think that's all for now because I'm starting to get a headache. Anyways, speaking of episode 4, I think it is the second best. So, first of all, Moose, the character introduced in this, is a pretty decent character. They have some development. I like how it was just Derek and Moose living together. Then Trevor moved in as a nerd, and which I think really fits him, and is just trying to make them act better. And then he just and then the thing is, Derek and Moose are trying to make a show called Adventure Camp. Sound familiar? Beta fans? Is anyone there? Is it just me? Anyways, so they pitched the show to a film competition. I should script this stuff. Anyways, they pitch it, and the thing is, the people come to Derek and say that they don't think that he's suited for it, and then he's just crushed because he thought that they were talking about Moose, but they were talking about him, and that makes him upset. And then, like Trevor is going to auditions because he wants to fill in the spot, and then he just gets in a fight with Derek, and they think that they're never gonna be functioning roommates again. Anyways, the people like Trevor, and he changes it to Misadventure Camp, which honestly is a bad show name, but it fits Trevor. And he ends up going pretty well with Moose. But then when they're actually doing it, Moose gets stage fright and he runs off. And then Derek comes in and him and Trevor work well together. And Derek decides that they need to change the name and they decide to do Disventure Camp. And yeah, that's basically it. Then they're shown in the future them living in an apartment together on the couch, and then watching what happened back then. And then Trevor just sees a dirty sock on the sofa and complains to Derek about it, and then Derek says, "That's your sock," and then he's like, and then he just throws it and is like, "Oh, whatever," and then they kiss. But I feel like, as I said for the last episode, they needed more in the present. I mean, at least they actually had some here. But yeah. Also, something I want to mention is despite this episode only being 4 days old, it has managed to be the second most viewed, which shows a lot about its quality. But as you can probably tell by the trend, it is the third longest. I don't know what to say here. But let's just move on to the best episode of the. Oh, wait. Quick mention. For all of the other ones, it goes episode blank and the English below it. On this, it's episode 4 and then just English on the other side. Kind of weird, but yeah. Also, quick comment on all of their thumbnails, the staff stories is in a different corner, except for episode 1 and 3, where it's in the same one. I mean, I get that the episode number and stuff is in the bottom left for all of them, but I just find it kind of weird. Anyways, the best episode of the whole thing, episode 1. First of all, shortest episode, most views, oldest. And I think this is by far the best that they did inside of the show. They showed that Jensen actually did survive, and he was running from the police. I mean, this is obviously a bit inside of the past, but it's basically the present. And it leads to where Jensen probably is now. So basically, he sees the cops all around him. He runs, jumps off a cliff, and then he goes into a cave, and then he finds a wolf who he doesn't realize at first is guarding their child. So he then attacks it and then realizes the child, and then he feels bad, meaning that he actually has a character because he's feeling compassion, which is nice. And he decides that he's going to take care of its child and it until it is healed. And the thing is, the cops are still looking for him, and he's like hunting out for rabbits and stuff, and liking the little wolf pup, and having some little remarks to the mother. And the thing is, this one is divided perfectly. It's almost exactly half and half between the basically present and the past, where it is showing the story of younger Jensen, who was with his sister Natasha, and basically she owned a dog shelter, and then he found out that she was putting down some of the animals and got really upset, and then he ran off with one he had quickly grown connected to with a broken leg named Rufus. And basically he goes into an alleyway and is playing it with Rufus and stuff, and then some wolves come up and try to attack him. Then Natasha comes out with a knife with her name carved on it, and tries to get rid of the wolves by harming them. And basically, she ends up getting hurt but still surviving, and little Vladimir, which is Jensen's actual name, went up to her and tried to see if she was okay. Then another wolf came and started attacking Natasha. She dropped her knife. Vladimir grabbed it and stabbed it, but the thing is, Natasha didn't make it. And and the thing is, inside of shots where Jensen has a knife, you it becomes more clear as the episode progresses that a name carved on it, Natasha, meaning that he still has been keeping his sister's knife for years, which I think is very sweet. And the thing is, eventually, the cops are searching around and they go into the cave where he is staying in with the wolves. He tries it to hide them, and then, basically, one of the officers comes up and Jensen, knocks them out. And then, more officers are coming in because they called for help, and and the one officer comes in, the adult wolf bites them, and then the officer shoots them. And Jensen is upset, screaming out no, because at this point he had seen that wolf as basically part of his family. And he then grabbed a rock and bonked the officer over the head, grabbed the adult wolf and had the little one come after him and ran. He jumped off another cliff into some water, and the little pup followed suit. But the thing is, the mama wolf didn't make it. Both Jensen and the pup were heartbroken, and then decided that they were going to go somewhere else where civilization can't bother them. He somehow communicates with the wolf because he's Jensen armor. Anyways, they start going off to somewhere else, and then the little wolf barks and jumps up in the air, and Jensen says, "Yeah, we can stop for rabbits." And I think it's overall a very well-rounded episode. It has emotional parts, a good backstory for Jensen, him showing that he actually has a character. And they did that all inside of the shortest episode of the series, which I think is pretty good. I'm happy for what they did with it, and I just wish that episode 2 did not disappoint me so much. Anyways, that's it. Goodbye.